My name is Rose, and I never imagined my life would turn out this way. I was just 18 years old when everything changed. I grew up in a quiet village where everyone knew each other and life moved at a gentle pace. My parents were protective, always watching over me with worried eyes. They would tell me that the world was full of dangers for a young woman and that they only wanted what was best for me. When they found Frank Dawson, a man from the city, they believed they had secured my future. He arrived wearing expensive suits and speaking with such confidence that it was hard not to be impressed. He made promises that sounded like dreams, telling me I would never have to worry about anything because he would take care of everything. I was young and naive, so I believed every word. After we married, I moved to the city with him, and that's when my new life began. The house was large, but somehow felt empty and unwelcoming. The streets outside were constantly filled with noise and chaos. I felt completely lost in this strange new world. In the beginning, Frank seemed kind enough. He never raised his voice, but there was something controlling in the way he observed everything I did. Every meal had to be prepared exactly right. Every floor had to gleam without a single spot. Even the way I made the bed had to meet his specific standards. Whenever something didn't satisfy him, he would look at me with disappointment and ask why I was so careless. My hands would tremble as I cooked, and my heart would race whenever I cleaned. Fear became my constant companion. I remember one particular morning when the alarm clock pulled me from sleep. I hurried out of bed, knowing I had countless tasks ahead of me. There was breakfast to prepare, the entire house to clean, and lunch to have ready on time. Frank was still lying comfortably in bed, showing no intention of helping. I gathered my courage and asked softly if he could assist me with some of the work. He barely opened his eyes before dismissing my request, saying I did everything so much better than he ever could. Later, when he sat down to eat, he examined the food critically and complained that the bread was cold, ordering me to make it again. I swallowed my frustration and said nothing. Time passed, and Frank told me we needed more money. He insisted I had to find work because he couldn't take out a loan. Despite my exhaustion, I agreed without argument. I took a job cleaning a hotel at night, scrubbing floors while guests slept peacefully in their rooms. My feet ached terribly, and my back felt like it was on fire. I would return home just before dawn, but even then, the house still had to be spotless and ready for Frank's inspection. Then I discovered I was pregnant. A small part of me hoped that the baby might soften Frank's heart and change the way he treated me. I was wrong. He showed no sympathy and simply told me not to stop working because babies were expensive. I continued my exhausting routine until my body felt like it would collapse. After our child was born, I thought he might finally show some understanding, but instead he warned me not to become lazy. He threatened that if I stopped working, he would send me back to my village in disgrace. The thought terrified me. I knew that being a divorced woman with a child meant having no future and no respect in society. Fear kept me trapped. Everything changed one night when Frank had a devastating car accident. His injuries were severe, and the doctors delivered crushing news: he would never walk again. The man who had once controlled every aspect of my life was now completely dependent on others. The house fell into an eerie silence. I stood at a crossroads and had to make a decision. Despite everything he had done to me, I chose to stay. I worked during the day at my job, cleaned the hotel at night, cared for our baby, and tended to Frank's every need. I lifted his body from the bed, washed him carefully, and fed him when he couldn't feed himself. All his power and control had vanished in an instant. The house felt different now. Sometimes Frank would lie there staring blankly at the ceiling, and other times he would turn his face away as if he could unbear to look at me. One evening, as I gently cleaned his hands, which had become so weak and fragile, I noticed tears streaming down his face. He whispered my name with a broken voice and said he had been cruel. I didn't respond immediately. In that profound moment, sitting beside the man who had made my life so difficult, I understood something important. He had lost all his power and control, but I had discovered my own strength. I had survived everything he put me through, and I was no longer the frightened girl who trembled at his words. I stayed not because I was afraid anymore, but because I chose to. I was no longer silent or helpless. The woman who once shook with fear while cooking had transformed into someone resilient and unbreakable. This is my story, the story of a woman who lived with a cruel husband and found the strength to survive it. Control and cruelty may break people temporarily, but kindness, inner strength, and truth are forces that endure forever. In the end, I remained standing while everything else crumbled around me, and I finally knew my own worth.